The scene opened to a sprawling modern city at night, where a new crisis is about to unfold. A rescue van speeds down the highway, delivering some incredibly disappointing news. The broadcast reveals the grim truth. The South Korean hunters who challenged the Grade 6 gate have failed once again, barely escaping with their lives thanks to a Japanese S-rank team. Public backlash is relentless, with internet users mocking the hunters and raising serious concerns about the upcoming international raid competition. Inside the van, a brown-haired man complains that the Korea-Japan rivalry is dead, furious that guild hunters make so much more money despite their pathetic performance. With absolute confidence, a reddish-brown-haired man declares that they still need to put their trust in the rising rookie hunters. A young man with purple hair and glowing yellow eyes sits quietly in the back. This is Soo-yul, the chief of the rescue department. Soo-yul dismisses the chatter entirely, stating that whatever the guild hunters do is their own problem to take care of. Soo-yul demands that the team focus on the emergency request they are heading to right now, cutting through the rising tension. The reddish-brown-haired man can't resist mocking the guild hunters for being all the same, frustrated that their own team always ends up taking the blame. Inside Soo-yul's mind, one thought echoes. This is just the typical lament of civil servants, and it perfectly sums up their current position. Soo-yul explains that the administration hunters are an organization where the majority of the awakened are only intermediate level, a detail that changes everything. He breaks down the structure, noting that they are divided into 3 total branches: the vanguard, surveillance, and rescue departments. When an anomaly occurs in a gate, our boy dashes forward as a rescue department hunter, risking his life to save both hunters and civilians from terrifying monsters. Within the organization, our boy's main role was a seeker. The scene shifts to the plaza, where a heavily guarded fiery gate pulses with terrifying energy. The rescue leader doesn't ask, tells the entire squad to focus up. The leader makes it crystal clear. They are heading into the gate to rescue the epic guild members, so everyone needs to keep their guard up. Suddenly, an older man with long white hair and a dark suit approaches, sarcastically praising the rescue workers. This is Baek Jun-won. Something inside our boy snaps. He is done playing nice with this shameless intruder. And then Soo-yul drops the bombshell. This arrogant man is actually an executive of the massive Overcross Guild. This ruthless executive treats hunters like disposable puppets, tossing weak guilds into deadly gates just to line his own pockets. With a sinister smile, it becomes obvious that this petty old man is the true culprit behind the recent string of deadly emergencies. Refusing to waste another second, the rescue team tears through the tension, shoving past the executive because this urgent crisis won't wait for his games. Baek Jun-won just casually says it, as if he didn't just cause this entire mess, offering his guild's help with a manipulative smirk. Trembling with fury, Soo-yul demands to know how this man can shamelessly try to boost his guild's reputation when this disaster is his fault. Our hero makes a vow right then and there. They will handle their own work and absolutely do not need his toxic help. Without hesitation, the rescue squad leaps forward and plunges into the glowing portal, leaving the corrupt executive behind. Little does our boy know, this sinister smile means this is only the beginning of a deadly trap. The scene shifts to the deadly jungle ruins, where a desperate cry for help echoes through the pouring rain. Desperate, a terrified healer pours every ounce of her magic into her fallen comrade, praying the emergency rescue team arrives soon. But what she doesn't know is that a massive bloodthirsty monster has been watching from the shadows and is now looming right behind her. The healer can't believe what she is seeing. This wasn't supposed to happen. Before the girl can react, the monster closes the distance and prepares to deliver a devastating strike. Every instinct in her body screams one thing: run, but she can only squeeze her eyes shut and brace for the end. Soo-yul catches the monster's claw mid-swing, the shockwave cracking the ground beneath them as his lightning spear deflects the fatal hit. With one clean strike, our hero sends the massive beast crashing backward, shielding the survivors from the blast. For the first time in forever, the terrified girl finally lets out a breath as a gloved hand reaches out to her. With absolute confidence, our boy declares that the rescue workers have officially arrived to save the day. Suddenly, the section chief calls out to Soo-yul, shattering the brief moment of peace. The chief urgently warns the squad that a relentless swarm of ghouls has cut off their path, demanding they find a new escape route immediately. Something shifts in Soo-yul's eyes. This is no longer a game. Our protagonist activates Silent Wave. The air crackles with raw energy as he tunes out the chaos to focus entirely on the ambient sounds. Inside his mind, one thought echoes. He is going to map out the entire dungeon structure, using nothing but sound waves to find a safe path. The scene shifts to the dungeon's layout, where the sound waves map out every hidden corridor and central chamber. Soo-yul's eyes glow a brilliant yellow as he locks onto the perfect escape route. Our boy just casually says it, as if he didn't just map out the entire dungeon in seconds to find a way out. Without missing a beat, the squad scoops up the startled healer and springs into action. The entire squad dashes forward, tearing through the stone corridors with a horde of monsters hot on their heels. Deep down, the healer knows they are desperate, but isn't ready to admit she completely doubts this path yet. The section chief explains that despite his low rank, this guy has top-class sensing abilities. A detail that changes everything. A slow smirk creeps across Soo-yul's face. been waiting for this chance to prove his worth. But just then, a terrifying creature with glowing red eyes lunges from the shadows. Before the beast can react, a hunter closes the distance and delivers a devastating strike. A chill runs down the section chief's spine. Just how outclassed they really are, as he screams in panic about the route. The situation escalates instantly as a hunter screams that the relentless ghouls are multiplying endlessly. A barrage of magic attacks tears through the ghouls' defenses, each faster and harder than the last. The hunter takes hit after hit but refuses to stay down, guarding the healer with his life. With one final earth-shattering strike, Suyul ends it. The monster crumples to the ground. Suyul's glowing eyes narrow as he realizes their escape route is right in front of them, but something feels completely off. Our hero deduces the terrifying truth. The monsters are intentionally barricading their only destination. But what the team doesn't know is that these mindless ghouls are being controlled by a much darker force watching from the shadows. A system notification pops up. Suyul has unlocked the true potential of his sixth sense. Suyul's expression darkens, and everyone feels genuine fear as he confirms the sinister gaze of a puppet master nearby. In a flash, a heavy wooden staff strikes the stone floor, echoing with ominous magical energy. The dungeon boss finally reveals itself, casting a massive glowing purple magic circle right beneath the rescue team. Everyone's jaw hits the floor after seeing the deadly trap light up beneath them. Every instinct in Suyul's body screams one thing: run. Desperate, our protagonist begs his teammates to scatter before the trap detonates. At the last possible second, the unseen necromancer snaps its twisted fingers. The magical force is so overwhelming that the hunters are instantly engulfed in a blinding, destructive light. The section chief makes a selfless choice, screaming for our guy to leave him behind and save himself. Before he can even finish his sentence, a devastating unseen force slams into the section chief. The hit sends the section chief out of the magic circle. Meanwhile, Suyul drops to one knee inside the glowing purple magic circle. A system notification pops up. Suyul has been hit with a massive movement restriction debuff. The section chief doesn't hesitate, shouting at his trapped comrade that he's going to pull him out of there. But the Suyul screams at him to stay back. Desperate, Suyul begs section chief Li Han to abandon him and evacuate the rest of the team. Li Han can't believe what he is seeing. This wasn't supposed to happen. Trembling with fury and frustration, the section chief grinds his teeth. With a heavy heart, Li Han apologizes and makes the agonizing call to retreat. With absolute confidence, our boy declares that he has zero intention of dying here today. He steps forward, gripping his spear as three massive, terrifying monsters close in around him. Staring into the darkness, our guy calls out the unseen enemy, realizing they've been manipulated from the very start. Something shifts in Suyul's eyes as he calls out the mastermind by name. The true dungeon boss, Ka-Ra-Kul, finally steps out of the shadows, radiating a terrifying aura. The skeletal demon admits he's baffled, demanding to know how a mere human understands the temple's layout just as well as he does. A slow smirk creeps across our protagonist's face. He casually offers to trade the secret for his life. The skeletal demon rejects the deal, reaching out with a crackling dark magic to forcefully turn Suyul into a mindless ghoul. Before our hero can react, Ka-Ra-Kul closes the distance and delivers a devastating strike of dark magic. The dark energy tears through his armor, burning into his flesh with terrifying intensity. A system notification pops up. Our boy has been hit with a lethal curse, and his vitality is rapidly draining away. Engulfed in agonizing purple flames, Suyul screams in pain, his mind racing with regret over his useless bluff. Deep down, he knows the grim truth. If he had just swallowed his pride and begged for help, he might have actually survived this nightmare. But to understand what happens next, we need to go back to the harsh reality of this world, where corrupt guild hunters chase falling coins instead of saving innocent lives. In a twisted society overrun by greed, true justice feels like nothing more than a forgotten myth. The scene shifts to a rainy day years ago, where a massive, heavily armored administration hunter stands protectively over a young Suyul. Desperate and heartbroken, the towering hero apologizes to the boy for failing to save everyone. Seeing this legendary warrior shed genuine tears for the fallen, a powerful spark of inspiration ignites within the young boy's heart. From this moment on, our protagonist refuses to be the weak one, swearing to become a true shield for the defenseless. Snapping back to the present, something deep inside Suyul snaps. Refusing to die here, he triggers a massive chain of system skills, activating Silent Wave, Sixth Sense, and Synesthesia all at once. As he activates his abilities, the air crackles with raw energy, unleashing a colossal shockwave of golden lightning that illuminates the entire ancient cavern. The sheer pressure of his power tears through the ruins as he frantically scans the environment, desperate to find absolutely anything that can turn the tide. Desperate for any small possibility of survival, Suyul spots a glowing blue tombstone in the center of the chamber. Suyul can't believe what he is seeing. This wasn't supposed to happen. He stares at the ancient relic, completely baffled as to why this specific monument is the only one radiating digital data. The glowing runes pulse with a mysterious, magical energy. A system notification pops up. Su-yul has unlocked the secrets of a hidden class. Exhausted and panting for breath, our boy is completely stunned, struggling to process the sheer absurdity of finding a hidden class right now. But just then, a sinister voice echoes from the shadows, mocking his desperate struggle to stay alive. With absolute confidence, the skeletal summoner declares that he will put our hero out of his misery right now. The monstrous beasts lunge forward, completely surrounding our guy in a deadly trap. At the last possible second, the system flashes an urgent prompt, offering him the chance to become a labyrinth designer. His jaw hits the floor after seeing the sudden class change offer. A colossal purple blast obliterates the ground beside him, sending debris flying everywhere. The monster lunges and tries to deliver a devastating strike. Our boy, realizing it's all or nothing, something shifts in Su-yul's eyes. This is no longer a game. With a furious roar, he screams his acceptance to the system, ready to risk his life on this new power. The system instantly confirms his acceptance, unleashing a blinding burst of light that violently pushes the monstrous beast back. A new notification pops up, announcing that the tutorial is officially underway. Caught completely off guard, our boy is blinded by a sudden intense flash of blue energy. The entire environment shifts around him, transforming into a bizarre digital space filled with floating blocks and glowing runes. A pale clawed foot steps forward through the settling dust. The skeletal summoner is completely baffled, demanding to know what kind of trick this is. Staring at the strange digital walls forming out of nowhere, the monster can't figure out where his prey just vanished to. Meanwhile, on the other side of the rift, Su-yul finds himself standing in a completely unknown location. A massive status window materializes in front of him, revealing that his level is still 10, but his class is currently blank while the quest is in progress. Inside our protagonist's mind, one thought echoes. His original class is completely gone, meaning he might have actually just reawakened. Looking around the strange architecture, Su-yul finally pieces together the truth about his surroundings. Our boy explains that this dimly lit stone corridor is actually the tutorial area. A detail that changes everything. A system notification pops up. Su-yul has unlocked a brand new objective. The quest details are ruthless. He has exactly 24 hours to use the map function and wipe out 20 infiltrating ghouls to officially become a labyrinth designer. But there's just one problem. Our guy is completely stumped, having absolutely no idea how to actually use this supposed map function. To his surprise, a glowing blue holographic map suddenly materializes right in front of him. Staring down at the projection, our hero quickly realizes that the layout is surprisingly easy to read. He notes that the glowing green crystal right in the center marks his exact location, and those scattered red dots surrounding him, those are the exact coordinates of his targets. The objective becomes crystal clear. He needs to use this layout to hunt down every last ghoul before his 24 hours run out. With absolute confidence, Su-yul declares that as a seeker he can easily pull this off. Taking a deep breath to steady his nerves, he accepts the challenge. Fired up and ready to go, our boy pumps his fist and prepares for the hunt. The scene shifts to the dark, foggy corridors of the labyrinth, where danger lurks around every corner. Suddenly, a terrifying pale-skinned ghoul lunges out of the shadows with a blood-curdling roar. Before the monster can react, Su-yul closes the distance and delivers a devastating strike. Su-yul's stats have skyrocketed, but the clock is ticking with just 30 minutes to eliminate the last 4 targets. Panting heavily and covered in dirt, he realizes he needs to tear through the remaining monsters much faster if he wants to survive. Standing over a defeated monster, our guy casually explains that the tutorial is going smoothly, even ripping off a ghoul's severed arm to use as a makeshift weapon. With his golden eyes glowing in the dark, he activates his map skill once again to track down his final prey. Without hesitation, Su-yul leaps forward and slams his target with a single devastating blow, steadily reducing the monster count. A system notification pops up. Our hero has 14 ghouls left and 16 hours on the clock, making him think this will be a breeze. Deep down, our protagonist knows he's exhausted. But with only 10 targets left, he is absolutely certain he can finish within the time limit. And that's when everything goes wrong, as a massive, terrifying new enemy locks onto his position. Checking his map, bro notes one lucky detail. This colossal monster seems to be traveling completely alone. A chill runs down Su-yul's spine. Just how outclassed he really is becomes clear, as he isn't even sure he has the strength to take this beast down. Something shifts in his eyes. This is no longer a game, and he resolves to wipe out the weaker stragglers first to buy himself enough time for the final showdown. He dashes forward, sprinting through the misty labyrinth to execute his new strategy as fast as possible. But to his surprise, he stops dead in his tracks as the towering boss ghoul emerges right in front of him. A slow smirk creeps across our guy's face. Been waiting for this, and he openly mocks the beast for walking right into a solo death trap. The monster doesn't even flinch, its heavy footsteps echoing through the corridor as it marches closer. Our boy can't believe what he is seeing. This wasn't supposed to happen, as he realizes the sneaky bastard brought backup. Turns out the boss has merged with the remaining pack, creating a formidable wall of terrifying red-eyed monsters. Frustrated, Su-yul realizes that neglecting his map for just a few minutes has led him straight into an absolute worst-case scenario. Inside our hero's mind, one thought echoes. He needs to calm down and revise his plan immediately, knowing his absolute limit is fighting 2 ghouls at once. Trapped on all sides by the remaining pack, Suyul realizes his only option is to break through their ranks. But as he visualizes the battlefield like a giant game board, a grim realization washes over him. Deep down, our hero knows the bitter truth. He is completely cornered, and it's a total checkmate. Sweating and gritting his teeth, he begins to doubt himself, wondering if this miserable end is truly the absolute limit of a D-rank hunter. Suddenly, Suyul pieces it all together. This entire bizarre situation is supposed to be a tutorial for a labyrinth designer, meaning there has to be a hidden solution. Refusing to just roll over and die, our boy screams at the system, demanding it give him a tool he can actually use to survive this trial. A system notification pops up. Suyul has unlocked a barrage of new abilities, including Sixth Sense and Synesthesia. With absolute confidence, our guy declares that if these monsters want him dead, they are going to have to try a lot harder. The system explains that his newly linked skills have uncovered a hidden mechanic called a spin block, a detail that changes everything. He reaches out toward the glowing green digital wall, feeling the raw energy of the labyrinth pulse beneath his fingertips. Another alert chimes in, confirming that he now has full authorization to manipulate the spin block directly through his map interface. The sheer pressure of the labyrinth's shifting architecture makes him stagger back in awe as the environment responds to his presence. The prompt flashes a second time, drilling the new mechanic into his head so he doesn't miss his chance to turn the tables. Baffled by the sudden interface, Bro stares down at the glowing green hologram in pure disbelief. A digital hand demonstrates the motion, showing him exactly how to rotate the labyrinth's corridors to his advantage. Testing the waters, Suyul activates the spin command, watching as digital energy crackles across his fingertips. Before the beast can sink its claws into him, our hero shifts the very ground beneath it, sending the creature tumbling. The massive monster staggers, completely baffled as the labyrinth's corridors violently rotate around it. And that's when our boy finally realizes the truth. This isn't just a navigation tool, it's a weapon. A slow smirk creeps across Suyul's face. He's been waiting for an advantage like this. It's not even a fair fight anymore. He is toying with the monsters, flipping the map to drop them right on their heads. Without hesitation, Bro leaps forward and closes the distance with his glowing dagger drawn. His attack connects with such force that it tears right through the creature's thick hide. But the beast refuses to go down quietly, glowing blood red as it unleashes a terrifying enraged roar. Trembling with fury, the monstrous brute charges forward to crush him into paste. Suyul doesn't even flinch, casually swiping his hand to manipulate the map interface once more. A solid digital wall materializes out of nowhere, and the charging beast slams face first into the dead end. With one clean block, our protagonist sends the massive creature crashing into the ground. The relentless brute takes the hit but refuses to stay down, scrambling back to its feet for another desperate lunge. Gathering every last ounce of strength, Suyul leaps directly at the beast to bring it down for good. Suyul unleashes a glowing blue strike, slamming his weapon directly into the beast. The force is so overwhelming that the creature's fangs shatter on contact. But before our hero can pull back, the enraged brute lunges and grabs him in a crushing grip. The monster squeezes with terrifying force, trying to crush the life out of our boy. With his eyes glowing a piercing gold, Suyul makes it crystal clear. He already warned this beast what would happen. In an instant, his body surges with explosive energy, unleashing a massive shockwave of golden lightning. With absolute confidence, our protagonist declares that he didn't come all this way just to die here, tearing through the monster with a devastating blast. A blue system notification pops up. Suyul has officially cleared the tutorial and unlocked his new class as a labyrinth designer. The system details his rewards, granting him exclusive skills that allow him to turn any defeated ghouls into his very own labyrinth monsters. With the trial finally over, the interface offers our guy a simple choice: return to a safe place. The scene shifts to a rainy city street back on the outside, where a frantic rescue team is screaming for their section chief. Desperate, a blonde colleague begs the section chief to calm down, but the furious leader demands they go back inside to rescue Suyul immediately. The blonde hunter points out the grim reality. The gate has completely vanished, making it impossible to find their missing comrade. Suddenly, the tense argument is interrupted by the casual snap of someone biting into a chocolate ice cream bar. Our boy just casually strolls up with an umbrella, asking what everyone is so angry about, as if he didn't just survive a deadly dungeon. Everyone's jaw hits the floor after seeing our hero standing there completely unharmed. Completely unfazed by the deadly dungeon, our guy simply suggests they grab a sweet treat and clock out for the day. Leaving the frantic rescue team behind, the story moves to a peaceful city square where the sun is finally shining. Suddenly, a glowing blue interface materializes, announcing the creation of an S-rank skill known as Sphere. Sitting quietly by a fountain, Suyul examines the glowing portal in his hand, realizing this skill allows him to trap opponents inside his newly acquired domain. The system explains that while he can forcibly drag targets into the maze, any enemy who manages to defeat the boss and escape will become even stronger. A terrifying detail that changes everything. Since the sphere is completely invisible to normal people, our guy realizes just how dangerously easy it would be to kidnap his enemies. Checking his dungeon's fragile durability stats, our protagonist finally realizes the truth. He desperately needs to capture much stronger monsters if he wants to survive what's coming. He remembers that the only way to actually stock his maze is by decimating enemies inside it and triggering his King of the Labyrinth authority. Clenching the glowing portal in his fist, Suyul makes a vow right then and there. He has to push his own limits and become an absolute powerhouse. His deep concentration is broken when a young brown-haired woman named Yunhee approaches from behind to ask what he's thinking about. Greeting him with a warm smile, she holds out a fresh apple as a friendly peace offering. She explains that her mother specifically sent her to deliver the fruit, happy to have bumped into him while running errands. Bro is completely baffled by the massive bag of food, but Yunhee brushes it off as just a small token of their 5 years of neighborly affection. As they stroll down the street, he casually asks how her school life is going, but her sudden nervous flinch proves that something is very wrong. Yunhee awkwardly averts her eyes, clearly sweating as she stammers out a vague response about her classes. Taking a loud crunch of the apple, our hero raises an eyebrow, instantly sensing that she's hiding something behind that forced smile. But just then, a desperate scream shatters the peaceful moment, making both of them whip their heads toward the commotion. Desperate, a frantic mother begs the police officers to let her through so she can save her daughter. The scene shifts to a massive hotel looming in the background, where the trapped girl is supposedly still stuck inside. Scanning the building for smoke and finding none, our boy pieces the clues together and deduces that they are dealing with a catastrophic dungeon break. Suyul explains that an unattended gate has overflowed, allowing monsters to pour out. A detail that changes everything. Without hesitation, he shoves the bag of apples back into Yunhee's hands, apologizing as he prepares to leave her behind. Something shifts in Suyul's eyes. This is no longer a game, and he firmly declares that he has to get to work for the rescue department. Meanwhile, the chaotic perimeter is completely locked down by local authorities trying to hold back the surging crowd of onlookers. Ignoring the screaming cops, our guy just casually slips right under the police tape and marches straight toward the danger zone. Before the angry officer can physically throw him out, he flashes his official Seoul Rescue Department administration badge to clear his path. The cop is stunned to see him alone, but Bro firmly states that he isn't waiting for the rest of his team and is heading into the breach immediately. Horrified by this suicidal plan, the officer desperately grabs his shoulder to physically stop him from throwing his life away. The guard warns him that the hotel is currently swarming with a vicious pack of red goblins, making a solo rescue mission absolute suicide. With absolute confidence, Suyul declares that time is running out and he must enter the building immediately. He points to the crying mother nearby, explaining that a young child is still trapped inside the monster-infested hotel. Our protagonist explains that the official guild hunters are nowhere to be found, meaning someone has to step up and do their job. Glancing back over his shoulder, Ogai casually mentions that he isn't actually going in alone. As he steps through the revolving doors, we learn that the Hanwoo Guild was supposed to keep this area safe. But here is the dark truth. These massive guilds completely ignore low-grade gates that don't make them any money. This ruthless greed is exactly what leads to catastrophic dungeon breaks, leaving innocent civilians slaughtered in the lobby. A system notification pops up. Suyul has activated his sixth sense ability. A slow smirk creeps across his face. He calls out to the monsters hiding in the shadows, eager to test out his new powers. In a flash, the hidden enemies finally make their move. 3 vicious red goblins lunge at our hero from all directions, aiming for a lethal ambush. Our boy just casually mocks them, noting that their ambush is nothing more than typical goblin behavior. He activates his sphere skill, and the air crackles with raw energy as a massive blue anomaly forms above him. The sphere unleashes a massive gravitational pull, dragging the helpless creatures right out of the air. A chill runs down the goblin's spines. Realizing too late just how outclassed they really are, the sheer pressure of Suyul's power is overwhelming, instantly swallowing the panicked creatures into the dark void. When the dust settles, only Suyul is left standing in the modern hallway, his hand still raised toward the crackling energy. Deep down, our hero knows his past self would have hesitated in a moment like this. But those days are long gone. Proving he is no longer weak, the scene shifts to his labyrinth room, where his massive purple monster viciously tears through a terrified goblin. With absolute confidence, our guy declares that he is now the master of the labyrinth, and the real slaughter is about to begin. Suyul explains that the red goblins are merely 1-star monsters, a detail that makes their desperate retreat even more pathetic. Our boy just casually notes that they operate around a leader, but otherwise, they aren't much different from standard dungeon trash. But just then, the purple beast lunges forward, and our protagonist hints at their one unique deadly trait. The goblin leader flashes a menacing smile, revealing a hidden trap. In an instant, the pack leaps into the air, proving that these creatures actually hunt with terrifying intelligence. Watching through his glowing orb, Bro confidently declares that their clever little ambush is destined to fail. Before the goblins can react, Suyul uses his spin skill to protect the purple monster. With one clean strike, the goblin crashing into the ground. Suyul's spin attack connects with such force that the creatures go flying, completely ruining their coordinated assault. Checking the dungeon status on his orb, our hero is amused to see the enemy numbers dropping, realizing the surviving monsters are desperately trying to adapt to his deadly maze. Strolling down the hallway, Suyul notes that while the auto-hunting orbs are doing their job, the growing number of goblins means he needs to monitor the labyrinth closely. With absolute confidence, our hero declares that no matter what tricks they try to pull, they are trapped in his domain. Inside our boy's mind, one thought echoes. The monsters are the ones getting hunted now. The scene shifts to the 17th floor, where the real rescue mission begins. Inside a dimly lit hotel room, the atmosphere is heavy with dread. A young girl with a pink headband cowers in tears. This is So-mi, the survivor he's been looking for. For the first time in forever, So-mi finally lets out a breath as our boy gently assures her that the monsters are gone. With the rescue secured, the two of them make their way down the quiet carpeted hallway. So-mi is completely baffled, asking if he really wiped out all the goblins alone. And our protagonist casually takes all the credit for his ghoul's hard work. Deep down, our guy knows his strategy to funnel the horde into the labyrinth was an absolute masterstroke. Checking the holographic map, he realizes the goblins were actively sniffing out survivors, making every second count. A chill runs down his spine. If he had been even a minute slower, So-mi would have been torn apart. But just then a sudden chime breaks the silence, catching him completely off guard. A system notification pops up, warning him that over half of the labyrinth's defending monsters have already been annihilated. And just like that, the elevator arrives with a sharp ding. Suyul instructs So-mi to head down to safety alone, but she hesitates, desperately asking why he isn't coming with her. With absolute confidence, our hero declares that he still has one last nasty pest to take care of before he can leave. Inside our boy's mind, one thought echoes. He knew all along that a specific target was the root of all this chaos. Through a glowing portal, he watches a massive red-skinned monster decimating the labyrinth's defenses. This is the Red Goblin King, and it's rapidly destroying his precious monster. He briefly considers letting the labyrinth boss handle the intruder, but quickly scraps the idea, realizing it would be a massive headache if the boss actually lost. Interacting with his holographic interface, our protagonist decides that since he needs to investigate the interior anyway, he might as well step onto the battlefield himself. In a flash, Suyul steps right through the swirling blue portal, surging straight into the heart of the labyrinth. Stepping inside, our guy is genuinely stunned by the absolute mess waiting for him. He surveys the ruined hall littered with defeated monsters, impressed by just how ruthlessly the intruder wiped out his forces. Our guy just casually says it, as if he didn't just decide to manually rearrange the entire labyrinth to protect his monster. With a swipe of his hand, he alters the labyrinth structure, swiping a massive holographic wall right into the maze. With the swipe of wall, the Red Goblin King suddenly smashes against the newly formed barrier and appears in front of our boy. Suyul activates his weapon. The air crackles with raw energy as a glowing blue spear materializes in his grip. Trembling with fury, the Red Goblin King demands blood and swings its massive glowing sword straight down. The Red Goblin King doesn't wait. He delivers a strike in an instant, but our boy dodges like it was nothing. Something shifts in Suyul's eyes. This is no longer a game. At the last possible second, our hero ducks and narrowly avoids the strike. In an instant, his body surges with energy, not the same person anymore. A system notification pops up. Our boy's stats have skyrocketed after his awakening, and he is only getting started. Inside his mind, one thought echoes. He originally planned to just test the waters with his ghouls. With absolute confidence, our guy declares that he can handle the monster all by himself. He sees it coming and slips past it like it's nothing. Without hesitation, our protagonist leaps forward and slams the beast with a single devastating blow. The force is so overwhelming that the monster's weapon shatters on contact. The goblin retaliates with a massive punch, but Bro deflects the colossal strike head-on. The sheer pressure of the attack sends him skidding backward down the corridor. He takes the hit but refuses to stay down, digging his heels in to halt his momentum. Our boy can't resist mocking the beast for intentionally launching him exactly where he wanted to be. He points out the brutal truth. The creature is far too exhausted to even lift its arms. A slow smirk creeps across his face. He's been waiting for this perfect setup. Suyul casually asks the beast where all its previous momentum went. He explains that he actually invested 2 million won into this fight. A detail that changes everything. Our hero demands the exhausted creature to step up and show a display fitting for a king. Feigning surprise, Bro touches his chin and sets up the ultimate insult. Something inside the goblin snaps. It is done playing nice. The enraged monster dashes forward, ready to strike with everything it has. The beast screams out a death threat, but our protagonist calmly stands his ground, demanding the monster prove its worth. His expression darkens, revealing that he provoked the creature just to test something specific. The monstrous creature tears through the corridor, closing the distance in a flash. Little does the monster know, a hidden mechanism has just been triggered. An inescapable labyrinth repulsion device suddenly activates right above his head. Stopped dead in its tracks just inches away, the red goblin is completely stunned while Su-Yul doesn't even flinch. A triumphant smile crosses our boy's face as he casually bids the trapped beast farewell. A system notification pops up. A deadly spike ceiling trap has been activated, instantly crushing the beast. Our hero stands confidently next to the bloody spikes, admiring his handiwork. Su-Yul explains that these traps cost him 20 gold, but he is now sure these traps are worth every single coin. A slow smirk creeps across his face. The performance of his new defenses is absolutely flawless. His stats skyrocket as a level-up notification chimes in, confirming that the defeated goblin horde has been fully absorbed into his labyrinth's forces. Exhausted from the ordeal, Bro rubs his neck and trudges out of the building while paramedics rush past him. But just then a loud voice barks his name, making him jump in surprise. A furious section chief storms over, demanding to know what on earth our protagonist was doing fighting all by himself. The chief grabs him by the head, interrogating him about the wiped-out goblins, but our guy just plays dumb, claiming he hit his head and forgot everything. Frustrated by the evasive answers, the chief presses harder for the truth, only for our hero to casually offer to jog his memory in exchange for a free beef dinner. Suddenly, a gray-haired man in a brown coat steps in, cutting the interrogation short. This is Kwon Sung-soon, a representative from the Manhwa Guild, and he politely requests a moment of their time. The tactical chief's expression turns serious as he agrees to hear the guild representative out. Kwon Sung-soon bows deeply, expressing his sincere gratitude for their cooperation in handling the dungeon break, leaving Su-Yul slightly baffled. But the pleasantries end quickly, as the guild representative gestures directly at our boy to get straight to the real issue. He drops a strange request, firmly asking both hunters to keep their mouths shut and avoid speaking to any reporters about the incident. Kwon Sung-soon explains that the Hanwol Guild wants this whole mess swept under the rug to avoid causing a public panic. He pats our boy on the shoulder, offering a hefty sponsorship to the management bureau in exchange for their absolute silence. Inside our hero's mind, one thought echoes. This is exactly how the big guilds have been buying people off all along. He explains that unlike the management bureau, which is mostly stuck with D ranks, the major guilds boast powerhouses all the way up to S rank. Because of that massive power gap, the public naturally places all their trust in the guild hunters to keep them safe. Trembling with frustration, our protagonist hates how the guilds exploit that trust, but he knows he doesn't have the power to fight the system alone. Suddenly he grabs Kwon Sung-soon's coat and aggressively agrees to play along, putting on a perfectly compliant act. With a calm smile, our guy explains that blowing the incident out of proportion wouldn't benefit him anyway, especially if the Hunter Association just buries it. A slow smirk creeps across our boy's face. Been waiting for this exact opening to turn the tables. Reversing the dynamic, he pats the startled representative on the shoulder, pointing out that he'll probably have to keep cleaning up the guild's messes from now on. Without hesitation, our hero demands a staggering 10 billion won in sponsorship money to keep his mouth shut. His eyes glow with an intimidating golden light as he stares the man down, making sure he understands the gravity of the request. Kwon Sung-soon's jaw hits the floor after hearing that exorbitant number. Moments later, our boy just casually sips his iced coffee, as if he didn't just shake down a massive corporate guild. The scene shifts to a sunny park, where a very satisfied Su-Yul is finally enjoying a well-deserved 2-day vacation. Looking back at the hotel incident, our hero feels pretty good about handling the mess himself, and squeezing a massive payout from Kwon Sung-soon as a well-deserved reward. But there's a catch. His tactical co-workers are staring at him like he grew a second head, completely baffled that he took down goblins solo, so he decides to keep his true power under wraps. Deep down, Su-Yul knows that a public announcement of his hidden labyrinth designer class would make guilds swarm him for cooperation. But he isn't ready to deal with that annoying spotlight yet. So instead of playing the fame game, our boy pulls up his holographic interface and decides to focus entirely on managing his newly acquired labyrinth. A system notification pops up, detailing the exact gold cost required to repair the cracked walls and respawn the monsters inside his tutorial labyrinth. Su-Yul can't believe what he is seeing. A total repair fee of 5.3 million won, which is almost double his monthly salary, wasn't supposed to happen. But knowing he has just enough gold saved up, he bites the bullet and presses confirm, realizing he has to make this investment to move forward. With the repairs underway, our guy takes a sip of his coffee and prepares to tackle his next objective. Suddenly his phone starts buzzing, and his expression instantly sours at the thought of being bothered on his precious day off. He answers with a heavy sigh, bluntly telling the surveillance department lackey on the other end to get straight to the point since he's supposed to be on vacation. The caller just smirks, teasingly pointing out that his free time makes him the perfect candidate for a little scouting mission. A woman with long pink hair and a tactical harness steps into view, This is Lee Jong Hyeh, and she demands that our hero use his scout skills to track someone down for her immediately. She waits expectantly for his answer, fully assuming he'll just roll over and accept the job. Lee Jong Hyeh stares at her disconnected screen, completely baffled that he just hung up on her mid-sentence. Meanwhile, Bro casually tosses his empty cup in the trash, completely ignoring her outrage as he goes right back to strategizing his labyrinth spawns. Inside our protagonist's mind, one thought echoes. Stepping in directly is the best way to save his hard-earned gold. But just then, his phone starts vibrating again, and our boy is visibly frustrated by the constant interruptions. Desperate, Lee Jong Hyeh begs him to take the job, promising to buy him beef while he furiously yells at her to do her own surveillance work. She ignores his deadpan reaction and explains that the target's identity alone will make him want to take the mission. A detail that changes everything. The look on our guy's face shifts instantly. He is completely stunned to hear the name Kong Tae-san. Deep down, our hero knows he can't pass this up. He admits he actually wants to meet a legend like that at least once. A slow smirk creeps across Soo-yul's face. With his tracking skills, finding someone of that caliber will be a walk in the park. The scene shifts to a quiet local park, where a seemingly ordinary afternoon is underway. Two older men are locked in an intense game of Janji, with one player making a ruthless move that completely crushes his opponent's strategy. The losing player erupts in frustration, demanding a rematch in Go, while our protagonist quietly observes the bickering grandpas from the sidelines. Soo-yul activates his glowing eyes, noting that the overwhelming pressure he felt from a distance is absolutely terrifying up close. The sheer pressure of the old man's dark red aura brings a heavy tension to the air, a clear sign of a highly powerful awakened. But despite the monstrous energy, our guy rubs his chin in disbelief, highly skeptical that this random grandpa is actually the legendary Kong Tae-san. To his surprise, the frustrated player notices him staring and asks if he knows how to play the game. With absolute confidence, Soo-yul leans in and whispers a flawless strategy to help the old man secure a devastating victory. Soo-yul doesn't ask, tells the old man to move his chariot first, no room for debate. A system notification pops up. Soo-yul has activated his sixth sense. At the last possible second, Soo-yul ducks and narrowly avoids the strike. The projectile slams into the tree behind him with terrifying force. Everyone's jaw hits the floor after seeing a simple game piece embedded deep into the solid wood. The older man makes it crystal clear. He knows when someone approaches him with hidden motives. Inside Soo-yul's mind, one thought echoes. This is definitely the legend he's been looking for. He explains that this man is one of only 5 S-rank hunters in all of Korea. A formidable warrior who can turn absolutely anything he holds into a deadly weapon. Radiating an overwhelming red aura, the S-rank hunter Kong Tae-san makes it crystal clear. He refuses to let such a useless, trashy move slide. But just then, a frantic voice calls out for the master, breaking the heavy tension. Lee Jong Hyeh dashes forward, completely exhausted from running. Kong Tae-san lock eyes, and the air turns heavy with killing intent as he questions Soo-yul's affiliation with the surveillance department. Our boy just casually says it, as if he didn't just claim to be a simple scout for the rescue department. Kong Tae-san lunges forward, but Soo-yul sees it coming and slips past it like it's nothing, boasting that having too many talents is his only flaw. Kong Tae-san's expression darkens, warning the kid that his smart mouth is going to get him in serious trouble. Lee Jong Hyeh doesn't ask. She tells Kong Tae-san to explain where he's been hiding all day. She insists that the trainees are already gathered and waiting for his immediate return. Turning her attention to Soo-yul, she demands to know how he managed to track down a man that even the surveillance department couldn't find. With absolute confidence, our boy declares that he's just that capable, turning to leave since his job is done. But Kong Tae-san isn't letting him off that easy, calling the arrogant brat out before he can take another step. The old master gestures forward, ordering the young administration hunter to follow him. The scene shifts to a massive training facility, where Kong Tae-san plans to test the kid's smart mouth himself. The old man explains that every single awakened is born with a strict maximum capacity. This means that no matter how hard a C-rank hunter trains, they can never escape their assigned rank. But the system cannot define everything, because true martial arts can never be fully quantified by mere numbers. Kong Tae-san activates his aura. The air crackles with raw energy as he reveals that weapon proficiency is the true key to breaking those limits. In a flash, he swings his glowing blade upward to demonstrate his overwhelming power. He looks out over the gathered crowd, declaring that this exact reason is why all the administration hunters have been summoned today. Deep down, our protagonist knows he should be paying attention, but he really just wants to go back and check out his labyrinth. Kong Tae-san barks at a young trainee named An Shi-woo, demanding to know exactly how long he has been studying under him, to which Siwoo proudly declares it has been 4 months. The surrounding crowd whispers among themselves, noting that this senior instructor is actually one of the rare B-rank hunters in the surveillance department. The veteran hunter doesn't hold back his praise, explaining that Siwoo's raw potential is the exact reason he is standing on this training ground today. Gripping his wooden sword tightly, the master prepares to put that potential to the ultimate test. He poses a heavy philosophical question to the boy, asking what is truly required to wield a blade properly. With absolute confidence, Siwoo declares that it takes formidable physical strength and a deep understanding of one's own skills. The old master falls completely silent, his unreadable expression making the air turn heavy. Instead of answering, he suddenly points his blade directly at Su Yul, challenging the arrogant brat to give his own answer. Our boy just casually says it, as if he didn't just undermine the entire lesson, stating that it simply requires the sheer will to swing the weapon. Everyone's jaw hits the floor after hearing such a ridiculously simple answer, with the other trainees immediately whispering that he doesn't even belong here. Kong Tae-san ruthlessly glares at our hero, demanding to know if he is absolutely certain about such a half-assed response. Inside Su Yul's mind, one thought echoes. He realizes just how sharp this hidden S-rank master truly is, but he confidently stands by his words. The old man can't resist mocking Su Yul for his completely shameless attitude, calling him out for being way too full of himself. And then Kong Tae-san shatters their expectations, confirming that the kid's overly simple response was actually the correct answer all along. And yes, that's exactly as ridiculous as it sounds, leaving our protagonist awkwardly thanking him while Siwoo glares daggers at him from the side. Siwoo grits his teeth, completely unable to accept what just happened. Trembling with fury, Siwoo demands to know how a complete outsider who isn't even an official trainee could possibly give the right answer. Our boy just watches the tantrum unfold, completely baffled as to why this guy is throwing a childish fit over a single question. Kong Tae-san steps in, declaring that anyone with the right qualifications can stand there, and decides to settle the dispute by giving them both a test. The old master challenges them to prove their respective answers through this trial, asking if they have the guts to accept. Siwoo eagerly accepts the challenge without hesitation, while our hero awkwardly tries to back out of the whole ordeal. Kong Tae-san subtly goads our protagonist, asking if he is truly okay with just walking away and letting his rival take the win. The old master reveals the true stakes of the trial. Whoever passes will officially become his personal disciple. Su Yul can't believe what he is hearing. The chance to train directly under an S-rank hunter is an unbelievable opportunity. This isn't just about getting stronger. It is a guaranteed ticket to securing a massive position of power in the hunter world. A slow smirk creeps across the master's face, knowing perfectly well that he just hooked the kid's interest. The room falls completely silent as Bro stands there carefully weighing his options. Clenching his fist tightly, our boy makes a firm decision right then and there. A massive adrenaline rush hits Su Yul. He is fired up and more than ready to take on the challenge. The scene shifts to a massive glowing training hall, where the master prepares to lay out the rules of this high-stakes trial. Kong Tae-san explains that they must use his personal technique to shatter the ether stones. With absolute confidence, Kong Tae-san declares that whoever smashes the stone first will officially become his sole disciple. Inside Su Yul's mind, one thought echoes. He needs to figure out exactly what an ether stone is. Our hero remembers that these magical rocks are incredibly durable, and only the most formidable awakeners have the raw power to even put a scratch on them. While Siwoo screams with absolute enthusiasm, our boy is completely baffled, trying to figure out how they are supposed to use a skill they haven't even learned yet. The crowd erupts into cheers, but Su Yul pushes his doubts aside, refusing to let the noise distract him. Gripping his staff, one thought echoes inside Su Yul's mind. He is going to seize this opportunity and make it his own. With a heavy step forward, Kong Tae-san makes a monumental declaration. He is finally going to pass down his skill. Kong Tae-san makes it crystal clear to Su Yul and the other student. If they don't feel anything, they fail on the spot, no room for debate. In an instant, Kong Tae-san's body surges with energy, not the same person anymore. A system notification pops up. Su Yul has unlocked the ability to perceive the terrifying weapon master's aura. The overwhelming pressure crushes down on our protagonist, making it nearly impossible to breathe as he desperately tries to endure the trial. But just then, his golden eyes spark with lightning as he finally begins to see the hidden structure within the overwhelming energy. Suddenly his consciousness is pulled into a mystical inner world, where Bro finds himself standing before a tranquil glowing lake. And just like that, the true form of the master's skill reveals itself as a brilliant blue spear. A blue holographic screen flashes before Su Yul's eyes, confirming he has successfully mastered the legendary Dragon King's spearmanship. Kong Tae-san glances over his shoulder, observing the boy's reactions to his monstrous aura. Kong Tae-san explains that both boys possess the rare aptitude to endure his energy. All around them, the other disciples are collapsing, proving that anyone else would either feel nothing or pass out instantly from the sheer force. A slow smirk creeps across Kong Tae-san's face. Been waiting for this. He doesn't ask. Tells the two remaining candidates to step up and prove their worth. Without hesitation, the brown-haired rival steps forward and tightly grips his massive sword. He stands dead center before a colossal crackling red energy barrier, ready to unleash his power. With absolute confidence, the rival declares that he will crush our hero's will to even attempt the trial. Su-yul can't resist mocking the guy for spouting such arrogant nonsense, casually yawning in his face. Furious, the rival charges his blade with red lightning, accusing our boy of bribing his way through the test. The rival charges forward and strikes the barrier with everything he has. The force is so overwhelming that the massive ether stone shatters on contact. Everyone's jaw hits the floor after seeing a mere bureau hunter obliterate the test stone so easily. Inside Kong Tae-san's mind, one thought echoes. The kid actually mastered the Dragon King's swordsmanship. Kong Tae-san steps forward, shifting the spotlight to the final participant. The brown-haired rival gets right in Su-yul's face, furious that a junior would dare try to steal a senior spot. Our boy just casually brushes off the intimidation, asking how anyone can live if they're always walking on eggshells. Kong Tae-san steps in and demands they cut the staring contest short, pointing directly at our protagonist to take the stage. Deep down, Su-yul knows the rival has him beat in raw power. But he isn't going to let a little trash talk stop him. Something shifts in his eyes. This is no longer a game of brute strength but a test to prove his own conviction. He remembers the master's words validating his rough answer, giving him the push he needs. Closing his eyes, our hero centers himself, fully embracing his true reason for wielding a weapon. But to understand, we need to go back to the very core of his motivation. He explains that his path was set long ago, driven by a burning desire to become just like the mysterious hunter who saved his life. He wants nothing more than to pass on that exact same hope to others who are suffering. In an instant, his body surges with energy as he realizes that to protect others, he has to push past his limits. With his eyes glowing a fierce red, he screams out his resolve to become stronger than ever before. Su-yul activates the Dragonfire Heart Piercer, and the air crackles with raw, swirling red energy. The onlookers are completely stunned, unable to comprehend the monstrous power radiating from a mere junior. The older master watches the display in absolute silence, his eyes sharp and calculating. Everyone's jaw hits the floor after seeing that monstrous display of power. Su-yul casually steps forward, apologizing to his senior for the absolute destruction he just caused. A slow smirk creeps across our boy's face. Been waiting for this moment to claim the top spot. The master explains that weapons and skills are merely tools. To unleash true power, a warrior must first understand themselves. With absolute confidence, the master declares that from this day forward the kid is officially his disciple. For the first time in forever, our protagonist finally lets out a breath and accepts the offer with a grateful smile. The entire courtyard erupts into massive cheers, celebrating the rise of a new prodigy. Meanwhile, on the other side of the city, something far worse is unfolding. A group of ruthless bullies has a young girl pinned down, violently punishing her for ignoring their demands. The blonde leader can't resist mocking Yun-hee for being nosy, sarcastically claiming it breaks her heart to see a classmate beaten down like this. She gets right in the poor girl's face, asking if trying to play the hero for a friend was really worth all this pain. But to understand what happens next, we need to go back to when Yun-hee foolishly picked a fight with a guy named Jin-tae. Both lock eyes, and the air turns heavy with killing intent as the two students clash. The main thug cruelly reminds her that she has no friends left to save her, leaving her completely isolated and helpless. And then Jin-tae drops the bombshell. Yun-hee's friend jumped off the roof and is currently fighting for her life in the hospital. Trembling with fury, Yun-hee glares at her tormentor, her eyes burning with absolute hatred. But the ruthless bully just smirks, casually stating that her defiant look only makes him want to hit her more. Without hesitation, Jin-tae steps forward and slams Yun-hee with a single devastating slap, sending her crashing to the ground. Suddenly, a tall white-haired man steps into the alleyway, respectfully addressing the thug as his young master. Jin-tae explains that this imposing figure is actually a formidable B-rank hunter. Jin-tae doesn't ask, tells his gang to keep a close eye on the unconscious girl and make sure she doesn't escape. As the thug walks away, he orders the hunter to follow, prompting the white-haired man to question their destination. With a sinister grin, Jin-tae explains that he specifically called for backup to visit a completely deserted area. The scene shifts to a massive glowing purple dome looming over the city, the perfect isolated playground for their twisted games. Back at the Hunter Association headquarters, the sun begins to set over the towering buildings. Two figures stroll down the hallway, discussing how incredibly lucky our boy is to become an S-rank hunter's disciple and get his pick of any weapon in the vault. Lee Jong-hyeh questions if a simple spear is really enough, but Su-yul confidently assures her that it's exactly what he needs. A system notification pops up. Su-yul has unlocked the Spear of Evolution, a unique weapon that adapts and transforms to perfectly match its user's will. As the spear vanishes into pixels, Lee Jong-hyeh groans about all the bizarre events today, frustrated that she's stuck working way past her clock-out time. Suddenly, a loud commotion breaks out at the entrance, and Su-yul has to physically hold back the frustrated blonde woman from charging forward. Desperate, a distressed woman in a gray hoodie begs the security guard to let her through, insisting she needs to see Chief Su-yul immediately. The guard coldly tells her to just make a phone call, but she frantically explains that no one is answering. Hearing the commotion, our hero steps forward, and the woman instantly recognizes him. She lunges forward and grabs his arm with a vice-like grip, tears streaming down her face as he asks what happened. Her mind is racing with panic as she chokes out a single name: Yun-hee. Through her sobs she reveals the horrifying truth. Yun-hee was forcibly dragged away by a gang into the Yellow Belt. The moment those words leave her mouth, the atmosphere around our boy completely shifts. Trembling with fury, Soo-yul demands to know exactly who is responsible for taking her. The scene shifts to a dark, misty forest, where someone nervously questions if they've wandered too far into the danger zone. Jin-tae and his crew trudge through the eerie woods, casually brushing off the danger since they brought the white-haired B-rank hunter along for protection. Jin-tae can't resist mocking his captive, Yun-hee, joking about whether their hired muscle could actually take down a real monster. Leaning in close, the smug thug taunts the terrified girl, bitterly recalling how she slapped him earlier and hoping she fights the beasts with that same energy. Every instinct in Yun-hee's body screams one thing: run. Without hesitation, she breaks free from his grip and makes a desperate dash into the foggy woods. Jin-tae doesn't even flinch, coldly ordering his men to catch their fleeing prize. Panic consumes Yun-hee as she sprints through the trees, realizing they actually plan to use her as monster bait, and she refuses to die here. But before she can get far, a heavy boot slams down on her foot, stopping her dead in her tracks. She crumples to the dirt with a terrified scream, completely helpless as the towering hunter looms over her. She screams for anyone to help her, but the blonde girl just mocks her desperate cries, bluntly stating that no one is coming to save her. Suddenly, a barrage of massive sharp projectiles tears through the misty air straight toward them. The hunter instantly draws his glowing sword and barks at the crew to get back, while the thugs panic, realizing these monsters are far from the weaklings Jin-tae promised. In a flash, the white-haired mercenary deflects the incoming barrage, but the rest of the gang scatters in absolute terror. Everyone's jaw hits the floor after seeing the blonde girl get brutally impaled by a massive spike. Horrified by the sudden bloodbath, Jin-tae screams at his hired muscle to fall back immediately, but the hunter stands his ground, his eyes locking onto the terrifying threat emerging from the shadows. A swarm of massive armored stinghawks hovers above them, their glowing red eyes locked onto their new prey. Meanwhile, on the other side of the forest, our boy Soo-yul is casually chatting on his phone, thanking someone for a massive favor. Standing over the fresh corpse of a stinghawk, he listens, as Soo-yul asks if he was the one who tipped off the boss about Yun-hee's location. The guy casually brushes it off as just responding to a missing persons report, while Young-min questions why he's crazy enough to walk into this death trap completely alone. This is back Kong Jong-min at Vanguard headquarters. Kong Jong-min sternly warns our hero to watch his back in such a hostile zone. Our boy completely ignores the warning, pointing out that it's a little too late for second thoughts now. Staring out over the toxic glowing green swamp, he admits this eerie wasteland is the absolute last place he'd ever want to settle down. He has just entered the Yellow Belt, a highly restricted quarantine zone completely sealed off after a catastrophic dungeon break. The beasts lurking in these murky waters might not pack the heaviest punch, but they are notoriously cunning and incredibly frustrating to hunt down. Crushing a defeated stinghawk beneath his boot, Soo-yul realizes these bugs are actually weaker than standard goblins, relying entirely on sheer numbers to overwhelm their prey. Still, an ordinary person wouldn't last 5 minutes in this toxic environment, pushing him to sprint through the marsh to rescue Yun-hee before it's too late. Without warning, a deadly volley of sharp stingers slices through the thick, humid air straight for his head. At the last possible second, Soo-yul ducks and narrowly avoids the strike. He looks up to find a massive buzzing swarm of armored stinghawks descending upon him from the canopy. A glowing system notification pops up as our protagonist instantly generates his signature weapon. Annoyed that these pests have been hounding him since the entrance, he glares at the swarm and declares he simply doesn't have the time to deal with them. Soo-yul activates his spear skill, and the air crackles with raw energy as a pack of vicious red goblins hunt down the stinghawks. The giant yellow armored insects screech in response, darting through the trees to swarm the new threat. Gripping his glowing blue spear, our guy stands completely unfazed as the monstrous horde closes in from every direction. Sweating but keeping his cool, Soo-yul notes just how massive this enemy swarm really is. The giant yellow armored bugs screech and dive straight for him with murderous intent. Our boy sees it coming and slips past the diving horde like it's nothing. A barrage of attacks tears through the stinghawk's defenses, each strike of his glowing spear faster and harder than the last. But the sheer volume of enemies is overwhelming, and Bro realizes this situation is quickly spiraling out of control. A system notification pops up, revealing a grim reality. His summoned ghouls and red goblins are being wiped out rapidly, leaving him severely outnumbered against the remaining 34 stinghawks. He knows that dragging this fight any deeper into the labyrinth will cause the entire labyrinth to collapse. Sliding backward to buy some space, our protagonist admits to himself that taking on this many bugs in close combat is suicide. Something shifts in Soo-yul's eyes. This is no longer a game. Deciding to use his absolute last resort, he gathers his mana and forms a swirling sphere of highly concentrated blue energy. Flashing a confident smile, Soo-yul can't resist mocking the monsters, casually asking if they enjoy playing in the water. He unleashes a massive torrent of water-like energy, washing over the monstrous horde in an instant. But that wasn't enough. Leaping into the air, he lines up a devastating physical strike on the remaining energy core. Gathering every last ounce of strength, Suyul brings the swarm down for good with a fully charged downward kick. The resulting blast detonates with such colossal force that a massive explosion of blue and green energy obliterates the entire area. The sheer pressure of Suyul's power brings everyone to their knees, catching the remaining red monsters in the devastating shockwave. The surviving bugs are completely baffled, staring at the incoming destruction in pure confusion. A relentless tsunami of energy tears through the cavern, sweeping the massive insects away like they weigh absolutely nothing. The attack connects with such force that the horde goes flying, destroying everything in its path. The battlefield falls silent. Our hero has wiped out every single one of them. Staring at the glowing aftermath, our boy can't help but complain about the massive repair costs, frustrated that he was forced to use such an expensive method. For the first time in forever, he finally lets out a breath and dismisses the remaining energy. Our guy just casually brushes off the massive financial loss, glad that the cavern is finally dead silent. Meanwhile, on the other side of the dungeon, something far worse is unfolding. The survivors sprint for their lives as a relentless swarm of insect monsters tears through the air behind them, pushing Jin-tae to scream in absolute panic. Terrified, Jin-tae screams at their white-haired escort, furious that a supposed B-rank hunter is completely overwhelmed by the swarm. The arrogant boy can't resist mocking the hunter for being utterly useless while they are hopelessly lost in the labyrinth. But before anyone can react, a sudden blur of motion cuts through the tension. With one clean strike, the white-haired man tears through the insect monster, slicing it completely in half right behind the falling red hoodie man. The Jin-tae, unable to believe as his companion left dead in one strike from the monster. Suddenly, another massive insect monster emerges from the shadows, its glowing red eyes locked onto the survivors. The terrified Jin-tae screams at the white-haired hunter, demanding he do something about the new swarm blocking their path. Panic sets in as the cowardly Jin-tae violently yanks his female companion, Yun-hee, trying to use her as a human shield. Completely losing his mind, the arrogant man grabs Yun-hee by the hair, viciously demanding that she fight off the beasts instead of him. But just then, a glowing red weapon erupts from the darkness, slamming directly into the creature's face. With one clean strike, the mysterious attacker sends the beast crashing into the ground. Everyone's jaw hits the floor after seeing the sudden rescue, leaving the cowardly Jin-tae stammering to ask who just saved their lives. Stepping into the light with a glowing red staff, the newcomer doesn't ask. He tells the arrogant brat exactly who he is, an administration hunter. Trembling with fury, Suyul glares down at the group, demanding to know if they are the ones who dragged Yun-hee into this death trap. Hearing his voice, Yun-hee's eyes widen in absolute disbelief as a wave of overwhelming relief washes over her. She immediately throws her arms around Suyul, sobbing uncontrollably, while he gently comforts her, noting that he has never seen her cry like this before. But the touching reunion is cut short when the entitled Jin-tae rudely barks at the bureau hunter to get his attention. With absolute confidence, the arrogant man declares that he will pay whatever it takes, ordering the hunter to act as his personal escort to the exit. Disgusted by his behavior, Yun-hee desperately begs Suyul to just ignore the pathetic coward and leave him behind. But the Suyul simply apologizes to her, leaving Yun-hee completely baffled as to what he is about to do next. Before anyone can react, Suyul swiftly strikes Yun-hee on the back of the neck, knocking her out cold. He reassures the unconscious girl that he'll finish up quickly and get her out, leaving the arrogant boy stammering in absolute confusion. Planting his glowing staff firmly into the ground, our hero steps forward, and the sheer pressure makes the coward freeze. Cracking his knuckles with a menacing smirk, he bluntly explains that he's about to do something far too brutal for her eyes. Furious and terrified, the entitled brat screams at the top of his lungs, demanding to know if this guy has any idea who he's messing with. But our protagonist doesn't even flinch, casually explaining that he knows exactly who he is, Park Jin-tae, the spoiled son of a Supreme Court justice. A quick look into Jin-tae's past reveals a disgusting history of school violence, theft, and drunk driving. Suyul calls him out for covering up his filthy crimes with daddy's money, but the arrogant brat just scoffs, daring him to do something about it. In a flash, our boy dashes forward and lands a heavy blow right on Jin-tae. Jin-tae can't believe what he is seeing. This wasn't supposed to happen. Grabbing the screaming coward by the collar, Suyul slams him into the dirt, ruthlessly mocking his belief that cash can solve any problem. Raising a glowing fist high into the air, he challenges the pathetic rich kid to try and buy his way out of this beating. But just as he's about to deliver the final strike, the sound of rapid footsteps echoes through the cavern. At the last possible second, white-hair man intervenes, catching the Suyul fist mid-swing and cracking the ground beneath them. Both lock eyes, and the air turns heavy with killing intent as our hero realizes his pest control session has been officially interrupted. The white-haired man stands his ground, assessing the situation with a cold, calculating glare. Regaining his false courage, Park Jin-tae screams from the sidelines, demanding his bodyguard slaughter our hero without mercy. Without hesitation, the man leaps forward, launching a ruthless assault on Suyul. Something shifts in Suyul's eyes. This is no longer a game. Our boy sees the strike coming and deflects the blade like it's absolutely nothing. The hooded attacker makes it crystal clear. A simple lesson isn't going to cut it anymore. With absolute confidence, our protagonist reminds them that they drew first blood, giving him full permission to go all out. A barrage of fiery attacks tears through the white-haired man's defenses, each strike faster and harder than the last. Inside the assassin's mind, panic sets in. He calculates that a mere bureau hunter should be D rank at best, yet he is getting completely overpowered by an unknown face. He staggers backward, genuinely baffled by the monstrous strength of the kid standing before him. Gritting his teeth, the white-haired man forces himself to focus, analyzing Suyul's spear to find a fatal blind spot. He summons a glowing yellow energy shield just in time, barely deflecting another devastating downward slash. Spotting an opening, the assassin leaps high into the air, aiming to dig his blade right into our hero's exposed guard. But our guy reads the attack perfectly, snatching the enemy's wrist mid-air and stopping his momentum dead in its tracks. Pulling his fist back with terrifying intensity, Suyul casually notes that he has no choice but to deliver a point-blank beatdown. Before the white-haired assassin can react, Suyul closes the distance and delivers a devastating strike right to his face. Our hero's attack connects with such force that the enemy goes flying, crashing hard into the dirt. Jin-tae jaw hits the floor, seeing his hired muscle knocked out cold, screaming at the unconscious man for buying his B-rank license. To his surprise, our boy realizes he just effortlessly one-shotted a supposed B-rank hunter. He realizes that all those relentless hours grinding and hunting giant hornets have skyrocketed his stats far beyond the B-rank threshold. A slow smirk creeps across his face as he finally understands just how formidable he has become. Trembling with fury, Jin-tae grabs a massive rock, absolutely furious that a mere bureau worker is looking down on him. He charges forward, screaming at the top of his lungs as he tries to smash our protagonist's head in. Suyul sees the clumsy assault coming and deflects it like it's nothing, casually sweeping the man's legs out from under him with his staff. With one clean trip, he sends the corrupt boy crashing face first into the unforgiving ground. Looming over the bleeding boy, Suyul coldly asks how it feels to be on the receiving end, reminding him that his innocent victim suffered far worse. Desperate and bleeding, Jin-tae screams that the world revolves around money and power, trying to justify his ruthless actions as just the way society works. Looking down with absolute disgust, our hero concludes that a piece of trash like this is completely irredeemable and doesn't deserve to exist. Terrified, Jin-tae scrambles backward, but Suyul calmly explains that he isn't the right person to make him suffer the way he truly deserves. Instead, he scoops up the unconscious woman and prepares to walk away, leaving Jin-tae to a far more terrifying fate. Without a shred of pity, Suyul declares that he is leaving him to the hungry beasts lurking in the shadows. A massive shadowy claw steps into the moonlight, and every instinct in the boy's body screams to run. 3 colossal shadow wolves emerge from the darkness, their glowing purple eyes locked onto their defenseless prey. Desperate, Jin-tae begs the monsters to stay back, but his screams fall on deaf ears. Before he can even finish his curse, the beasts lunge forward and tear through him without mercy. The monsters ruthlessly consume their meal, while the rescue team safely secures the unconscious girl and heads for the exit. With the perpetrators dealt with, the horrifying kidnapping incident in the Yellow Belt is officially brought to a close. For the first time in forever, Yunhee's mother finally lets out a breath as she pulls her rescued daughter into a tearful embrace. Kong Jong-min explains that they've already arrested the corrupt officials who allowed the kidnappers inside. The scandal explodes across every major media outlet, exposing the high school perpetrators and their deep ties to a powerful Supreme Court justice. The sheer pressure of the public outrage forces the disgraced justice to step down, completely wiping out his corrupt legacy. The scene shifts back to the city, where our protagonist is already preparing for his next move. A system notification pops up. Suyul has just received a brand new quest. The system issues an extermination quest, demanding he wipe out the Queen Hornet within 30 days or face a massive penalty to his stats. Our boy remembers exactly where to find it, recalling the massive insect he spotted on his way out of the Yellow Belt. Staring down the terrifying Queen Hornet, Suyul knows exactly what he's up against. Surrounded by a massive swarm of guards, getting to her won't be a walk in the park. A slow smirk creeps across his face. Been waiting for this. He knows that if ordinary hornets can obliterate an entire labyrinth, the apex predator commanding them must possess monstrous strength. Without wasting another second, our hero casually waves goodbye to his guildmates and heads for the door. Section Chief tries to stop him, reminding him that he still has a massive stack of paperwork to finish before clocking out. Suyul just stops and stares back at him in dead silence. And yes, that's exactly as ridiculous as it sounds. He just slams the door and completely ditches his shift. With only 1 month until the quest deadline, he realizes the Hornets will relentlessly expand their territory if he doesn't act fast. To face a threat this formidable, our boy knows he needs to be fully prepared. He arrives at a secluded dojo, only to be immediately scolded for being late. The old master doesn't ask, tells him to get inside because his training starts right now. Hours pass as the sun sets over the traditional training grounds. Baffled, our guy points at himself, completely stunned that he's just been named a direct disciple. The master makes it crystal clear. Even as a direct disciple, the brutal training he is about to face will be an absolute mountain to climb. The scene shifts to the main training hall, where the old master introduces Su Yul to the rest of the disciples. The master gives a reassuring pat to the tall senior disciple, Gun-Su, acknowledging his hard work and readiness for what's to come. Showing proper respect, our hero steps forward and offers a deep bow to his new senior. But Gun-Su just stares back in dead silence, while the other students look on in confusion. The master explains that the massive jagged object resting on the mat is the jawbone of a unique mutant monster known as an iron ghoul. Revealing a back covered in massive, terrifying scars, the old man reveals a dark truth. This was the very first creature that ever pushed him to the absolute brink of death. Gripping the heavy iron handles attached to the bone, the master lays out the challenge, declaring that prying this impossible object open is the next training task. In an instant, the master's body surges with energy, his eyes glowing a fierce crimson as he begins to pull. The sheer pressure of his power brings everyone to their knees as he forces the massive jaws apart with raw, monstrous strength. Standing tall with a blazing red aura, the master holds the jaws wide open, leaving Gun-Su completely stunned by his enduring toughness. The moment he lets go, the massive bone snaps shut with a devastating shockwave that echoes through the hall. Everyone's jaw hits the floor after seeing this display, with the disciples erupting into cheers, while Gun-Su questions if the old man is secretly made of solid steel. The master calmly steps back and gestures for our boy to step up to the plate. Inside our protagonist's mind, one thought echoes. He knows his stats exceed a B-rank hunter, but fully opening this beast's jaw like the master did might be impossible. Something shifts in Su Yul's eyes as he grits his teeth and pulls with all his might, determined to prove he can at least force it to budge. The master strokes his beard, genuinely baffled that the bone hasn't moved an inch. Despite our hero straining with every ounce of his strength, the massive jaws remain completely locked shut, proving just how absurd this task really is. Turning his back, the old man explains that this brutal challenge is meant to push his overall physical limits to the absolute max. He doesn't leave any room for negotiation, strictly declaring that all future lessons are paused until the bone is forced apart. A chill runs down Su Yul's spine as he stands there trembling, realizing just how outclassed he really is by this ridiculous assignment. Watching from the sidelines, one of the senior disciples scoffs in disdain, completely convinced that our boy is nothing but a talentless nepotism hire. Moment later, the scene shifts to the dojo's entrance, where Gun-Su is making his way up the long stone steps. He reflects on the 2 grueling years he has poured into the martial arts association, building his skills relentlessly to earn the coveted spot of direct disciple. Gun-Su's expression darkens as he stews over the bitter reality that a seasoned B-rank hunter like himself was passed over for some random administration worker. Trembling with frustration, he clenches his fist, completely consumed by the glaring injustice of the master's decision. But his bitter train of thought is suddenly interrupted by a cheerful morning greeting from above. Standing at the top of the stairs with a mop in hand, our protagonist warmly welcomes the veteran hunter. Gun-Su notes the early hour, but our guy just brushes it off, casually stating that hard work doesn't take holidays off. Su Yul friendly pats his shoulder and asks the older man to drop the formalities since he's the youngest, but Gun-Su rigidly refuses to cross that professional boundary. Changing the subject, the senior hunter notices the spotless courtyard, and our hero proudly admits he took it upon himself to tidy up the messy dojo. Gun-Su stops in his tracks and firmly tells Su Yul to drop the act, explaining that a direct disciple doing chores only makes the lower-ranked students incredibly uncomfortable. But our boy just tilts his head, genuinely baffled as to why they even need to divide tasks into above and below in the first place. With a warm smile, Su Yul explains that having a high rank doesn't mean he gets a free pass to push his own work onto everyone else. He looks right at the veteran hunter, and casually reminds him that they are all in this dojo to succeed together. Deep down, Gun-Su knows Su Yul is right, but isn't ready to admit it yet, finding this relentless optimism completely irritating. Over the next 2 weeks, our hero proves his worth, showing up every single day without fail and staying later than anyone else to push his body to the absolute limit. Despite holding the coveted title of direct disciple, he refuses to power trip over the other students, happily taking on the grunt work even when he's dead tired. He gets along perfectly with the rest of the dojo, wrestling and joking around with the guys like they've been friends for years. But the moment playtime is over, bro trains like an absolute madman, lifting massive stone weights until his muscles scream. Watching from afar, Gun-Su realizes that this flawless attitude is exactly what makes the kid so incredibly frustrating to deal with. Inside Gun-Su's mind, one thought echoes. This relentless, hard-working rookie is exactly the kind of martial artist he has always wanted to become. With one final heave, Su Yul ends his set, dropping the massive stone weight to the ground with a heavy thud. Dripping with sweat, our boy catches his breath and loudly cheers himself on, fired up to push even further next time. But just then, a cold bottle of water is suddenly thrust into his line of sight, catching him completely off guard. It's Gun-Su, who finally drops his stubborn pride, telling the younger boy not to overdo it while respectfully calling him his senior. Su Yul flashes a friendly grin, teasing the older martial artist that it took him long enough to finally drop the stiff formalities. But just then a massive horn blasts through the air, interrupting our hero's well-earned water break. Our boy is completely baffled by the sudden noise, but Gunsu immediately recognizes it as the Overcross Guild mobilizing for a raid. Suyul finds it incredibly strange that a massive guild would be heading into a nearby dungeon at such an ungodly hour. Gunsu explains that Overcross operates around the clock thanks to their massive numbers. A detail he casually drops because he actually used to work for them. The scene shifts to a sunlit forest, where a completely different operation is already wrapping up. A squad of heavily armed mercenaries steps out of a glowing purple portal, looking completely relaxed. One of the grunts casually mentions how surprisingly fast the job went, wrapping up in just a single day. And then the mercenary drops the bombshell. They manage to capture a highly dangerous steel-blood orc alive. Another soldier yawns and questions if capturing monsters is even legal, knowing full well that it's strictly forbidden by the association. The squad leader doesn't ask, tells his men to remember that this beast will sell for 12 billion won to fund their salaries. But what the mercenaries don't know is that someone has been watching from the shadows. A terrifying grin stretches across the beast's bloody face as it listens to their greedy conversation. The arrogant soldier can't resist mocking the captive beast for being a filthy trash mob, preparing to toss its sacred necklace into the dirt. Something inside the Steelblood orc snaps. It is done playing nice. Before anyone can react, the enraged Steelblood orc shatters its containment unit, erupting right behind the oblivious mercenaries. Meanwhile, back in the city, a swirling portal unleashes absolute chaos upon the streets. Our boy Suyul is wrapping up his own mission, looking completely unbothered by the surrounding panic. His squadmate tries to drag him to a company dinner, but our hero casually brushes it off. Suyul explains that the master is away from the dojo today, so he needs to step up and protect the students. Suddenly, a blaring emergency alarm cuts their conversation short. Suyul's expression darkens as a frantic call for backup blasts through the radio. The dispatcher reveals the horrifying truth. An illegally transported 3-star boss monster has broken free and is currently on a rampage. Every instinct in his body screams one thing as the disaster location is announced: the Korea Martial Arts Association. The sheer pressure of the Steelblood orc's power brings everyone to their knees as the panicked students scream for help against the sudden invasion. Desperate, an older instructor begs a young girl to run for her life while they still can. It's not even a fight anymore. The beast is toying with the heavily injured fighters. Gunsu takes hit after hit but refuses to stay down. Back in the past, when Gunsu thought he was an absolute genius, deep down he knows his past arrogance was just a shield. But right now, none of that privilege can save him. It all started years ago when Junsu's former guild left him crushed under rubble like a disposable pawn. Watching his comrades flee, the battered fighter finally realizes the cruel truth of this world. Crushed beneath the debris, his mind goes blank. Then the grief hits all at once. Gripping his broken sword, he refuses to believe the world is completely rotten just yet. He remembers the mysterious hero who once saved his life without a single word, sparking a new resolve. Staring down the colossal rock monster, he makes a vow right then and there to protect the innocent. Bloodied but resolute, he can't resist mocking the beast, declaring that this is exactly how he survived for 2 years. Inside his mind, one thought echoes: he has to hold the monster's aggro as long as possible so the others can escape. The terrifying creature raises its glowing red arm, preparing to unleash a devastating strike. Without hesitation, the monster lunges forward and tries to slam Gunsu with a single devastating blow. But just then something unexpected happened. The top-selling bust out of nowhere, and a familiar voice cuts through the dust, praising Junsu for holding out so long. Hearing that name, Junsu's eyes widen in shock, and for the first time in forever, he finally lets out a breath. With absolute confidence, our hero steps onto the battlefield and declares that he will handle the rest. A system notification pops up, asking if Suyul is ready to enter the labyrinth. The scene shifts to the labyrinth, where a high-speed chase is already underway. Sprinting for his life, Suyul realizes that luring the beast in here with a confident smirk might have been a massive miscalculation. Suyul can't believe what he is seeing. This wasn't supposed to happen. Glancing back in pure disbelief, our protagonist questions how this hulking brute still has so much stamina after its previous brutal battle. The colossal creature doesn't even bother navigating the maze, ruthlessly tearing through the solid stone walls like they are made of paper. A chill runs down Suyul's spine. Just how outclassed he really is. A slow smirk creeps across Suyul's face as he activates his power, casually offering it to the monster as a present. Suddenly, unknown figures appears from the shadows. In a flash, a swarm of vicious red monsters materializes from the shadows, launching a relentless full-on assault against the giant beast. Suyul activates his glowing red staff. The air crackles with raw energy. But the monstrous orc senses the incoming threat, snapping its head around with furious glowing eyes. The Steelblood orc catches Suyul's strike mid-swing. The shockwave cracks the ground beneath them. A glowing blue status window appears, confirming that his summoned army of ghouls and goblins is rapidly dwindling against this single, unstoppable enemy. Something inside our hero snaps. He is done playing nice, furious that the beast is trashing his newly repaired labyrinth. Realizing that normal monsters can't create an opening, Suyul makes a heavy choice. He has to risk everything and summon his most dangerous ally. The scene shifts as a massive dark foot slams onto the tiled floor, shaking the entire room. Before the steel-blood orc can react, the newly summoned beast closes the distance and delivers a devastating strike. This terrifying creature is the labyrinth boss Zori, and it is about to turn this entire battlefield upside down. But before Zori can even react, Steel-Blood Orc lunges forward and violently lands the strike into Zori. Zori doesn't let up, sinking its razor-sharp teeth into the Steel-Blood Orc's arm without mercy, tearing through flesh with a sickening crunch. Seeing the two monsters locked in brutal combat, Suyul realizes the moment he has been waiting for has finally arrived. Spotting a critical opening, our boy charges forward and strikes the distracted boss with everything he has. The Steel-Blood Orc throws its head back, letting out an agonizing roar as the red lightning tears through its flesh. A barrage of attacks tears through Zori's defenses, each faster and harder than the last. With one final earth-shattering strike, Steel-Blood Orc ends it. The massive boss crumples to the ground, its body splitting apart. A system notification pops up, confirming the labyrinth boss has been defeated, which completely disables all monster respawning in the area. Absolutely furious, Suyul leaps off the massive red monster, screaming at him for ruined his labyrinth boss. With absolute confidence he declares that the orc will pay dearly for reducing his precious boss monster to absolute nothingness. As he kicks off the brick wall, Hidden Trap suddenly activates across the dark vertical beams. The system flashes a deadly warning as the Steel Ron Trap activates, unleashing a terrifying barrage of steel spikes straight out of the walls. The relentless barrage of steel spikes tears through the monster's defenses, leaving it completely staggered. Before the beast can react, Suyul closes the distance and delivers a devastating strike. Our boy's eyes glow with raw determination as he pushes himself for one final decisive blow. He lands gracefully, sliding back to create distance while keeping his eyes locked on the looming threat. But just then his foot presses down on a hidden trigger plate. The system confirms the spiked ceiling trap is now active, bringing a massive spiked stone slab crashing down from above. The colossal stone structure obliterates the Steel-Blood Orc, crushing the monster instantly. Our hero lets out a breath of relief, casually explaining that he set up this cluster of traps just in case things went south. Looking at the pile of beaten body, he smirks, knowing his tactical preparation paid off perfectly. Suddenly, another glowing interface chimes right in front of his face, catching him completely off guard. A critical alert pops up, revealing that the labyrinth's durability is plummeting, and if it drops below 60%, the entire structure will cave in. Frustrated, our guy grabs his head, mourning the massive loss of gold, even though he knows he couldn't have won without the labyrinth's help. And that's when everything goes wrong. The solid metal trap suddenly splinters. Everyone's jaw hits the floor after seeing a colossal, red-eyed rock monster violently erupt from the ground. The formidable beast unleashes a terrifying roar, and the sheer pressure makes everyone freeze. A system notification pops up, flashing a dire warning. The monster is entering a berserk state. With absolute confidence, Suyul declares that the collapsing labyrinth won't save the beast, preparing to move the fight to a quieter spot. Without hesitation, our hero forces the swirling portal forward to relocate the clash. The scene shifts to a quiet, empty traditional corridor, far from the underground chaos. Gunsu staggers through the halls, relieved that everyone evacuated but deeply worried about where Suyul disappeared to. But just then, a swirling blue portal materializes right before his eyes. The rift expands rapidly, crackling with raw energy and blinding light. Gunsu can't believe what he is seeing, completely stunned by the massive surge of mana appearing out of nowhere. To his surprise, he looks through the rift and spots Suyul locked in a fierce clash with the hulking red monster. The formidable beast charges forward and strikes our boy with everything it has. Suyul catches the monster's heavy downward strike mid-swing, the shockwave cracking the ground beneath them. Inside his mind, one thought echoes. Is he only holding his ground because the beast is finally running out of stamina? He takes hit after hit but refuses to stay down, quickly realizing the monster's attacks are actually much heavier than before. A slow smirk creeps across his face. His body feels completely different, and he's been waiting for this. The 2 weeks of intense physical training that made this possible. Despite feeling like his body might shatter under the immense pressure, Suyul feels an unstoppable surge of power flowing through his veins. He dashes forward, finally experiencing the true terrifying results of his brutal training firsthand. He channels that raw energy straight into his spear, making the air crackle with electricity. Without hesitation, our protagonist leaps forward and slams the beast with a single devastating blow. The impact is so overwhelming that the hulking creature violently coughs up blood. A confident grin spreads across his face as he realizes he is actually having fun tearing this monster apart. But the beast isn't done yet, suddenly reaching out and clamping its massive hand right onto his weapon. Before our hero can react, the creature winds up its giant arm for a monstrous counterattack. The monster's attack connects with such force that Su Yul goes flying backward. With one brutal strike, he is sent crashing violently into the hard ground, his armor cracking on impact. Spitting up blood, Su Yul realizes the terrifying truth. Even in a blind frenzy, this monster is fighting strategically to disarm him. Suddenly, a sharp metallic clank snaps his attention back to the battlefield. The ruthless beast stomps down hard, completely shattering his only weapon into pieces. Seeing its prey completely defenseless, the red monster lets out a deafening roar and lunges forward for the kill. But right at the last possible second, a blinding blur of motion violently interrupts the beast's charge. Out of nowhere, Gunsu dashes forward and lands a heavy blow on the red monster. Desperate and bleeding from the head, Gunsu begs Su Yul to find a new weapon while he distracts the beast. But the furious creature doesn't even flinch, swinging its massive arm and swatting the newcomer away like a fly. The sheer force of the impact sends Gunsu flying through the air, coughing up blood as his defense shatters on contact. Unfazed by the roaring beast, our hero stands his ground, confidently declaring that he already has a plan for his arsenal. Without hesitation, Su Yul leaps forward, launching a fierce counterattack with everything he has left. The strike connects, completely disorienting the monstrous creature and leaving its senses heavily distorted. Inside our boy's mind, one thought echoes. This is the perfect opening to channel every last drop of his remaining energy. In an instant, his body surges with raw explosive power, his eyes glowing blindingly white as he prepares a suicidal detonation. Unleashing his ultimate move, the air crackles with terrifying red energy as a massive spectral jaw manifests behind him. The demonic beast's eyes widen in pure terror, realizing too late just how outclassed it really is. Gathering every last ounce of strength, Su Yul delivers a devastating bloody slash that completely tears through the monster's head. The monstrous body is completely obliterated, spraying blood everywhere as our guy lands gracefully nearby. When the dust settles, the colossal beast crashes heavily into the dirt, leaving only our protagonist standing victorious. A glowing blue system notification pops up, revealing that Bro has just acquired a unique grade weapon, the demonic dagger. Looking down at the severed head of the rocky beast, Su Yul casually thanks the dead monster for the combat experience. A slow smirk creeps across our hero's face as he wipes the blood from his mouth, confident he's finally ready for the next stage of his training. Nearby, heavily injured Gunsu lies battered in the dirt, barely conscious as a familiar voice cuts through the haze. The battered survivor squints through the blood pouring down his face, his mind racing as he instantly recognizes the person standing over him. Our boy reaches a hand out through the blurry vision, urgently demanding Gunsu to keep his eyes open and stay awake. For the first time in forever, Su Yul finally lets out a breath, praising Gunsu's absolute refusal to die. Staring up at his savior, Gunsu's eyes fill with pure gratitude as he realizes that the Su Yul figure was the one who pulled him from the brink. Bro brushes off the sentiment with a warm smile, making it clear that he will always watch his back before ordering him to just rest. As hazmat cleanup crews arrive to examine the monstrous remains, our protagonist assures his friend that the nightmare is finally over. The scene shifts to the Management Bureau headquarters the following day, where the fallout from the attack is just beginning. A massive crowd of reporters and anxious onlookers swarm the entrance, cameras flashing as tension fills the air. Suddenly, a ripple goes through the mob as someone spots a highly anticipated arrival pulling up to the gates. An older man with long white hair steps out under heavy guard. This is Overcross director Baek Junwon, and his expression is dead serious. The press aggressively shoves microphones in his face, demanding to know if the catastrophic incident was caused by an illegal monster transport operation. Halting his steps, the director addresses the furious mob, starting with a formal apology to the victims of the disaster. Standing his ground, director Baek Junwon defends the transport, claiming the monstrous orc was brought in purely as a high-value research donation despite the obvious risks. He promises full cooperation with the Surveillance Division's upcoming investigation, but before he can finish, the crowd's attention suddenly shifts. The onlookers completely abandon the press conference, pointing fingers as they recognize Su Yul walking by. Before anyone can react, the press swarms our protagonist, shoving microphones in his face and demanding to know how a lowly D-rank hunter managed to obliterate a boss-level orc. Uncomfortable with the sudden spotlight, Su Yul tries to slip past the mob, leaning on his colleague and using work as an excuse to escape. But the reporters are relentless, pivoting their attack to aggressively question if the Bureau's emergency response was a complete failure. A streamer shoves his phone forward, loudly accusing the Bureau of failing to regulate the massive guilds and demanding they take responsibility for the disaster. Su Yul gets furious at the blatant disrespect, but Section Chief calmly tells him to just ignore the bait. His partner explains that the streamer is just a corporate shill, paid off by the big guilds to post biased content and shift the public's anger onto the Bureau. Realizing the sheer scale of the manipulation, Su Yul lets out a frustrated sigh as he sees them pulling every dirty trick in the book. Without hesitation, Su Yul tells his baffled colleague he'll be right back and steps forward to take matters into his own hands. Stepping right up to the obnoxious streamer, he taps the camera lens and bluntly asks if the broadcast is currently live. Staring dead into the lens, he makes his intentions clear. He wants the entire world to hear his next words in real time. His eyes glowing with raw power, Soo-yul screams into the camera, publicly calling out the streamer for taking dirty money to cover up the elite's mistakes. Pointing an accusatory finger, he furiously declares that the top guilds dump their lethal garbage wherever they please, leaving the hardworking grunts to constantly clean up the blood. Everyone's jaw hits the floor after hearing Soo-yul's explosive accusation. Our boy can't resist mocking the man in charge, directly calling out Director Baek Junwon by name. The older man remains dead silent, and the air turns heavy with killing intent. Before our hero can react, someone grabs him by the hair and violently yanks him back. Section Chief desperately pushes the streamer away, apologizing profusely and claiming Soo-yul is just spouting sick nonsense to cover up the outburst. Watching from the sidelines, Director Baek recognizes our protagonist as the same insolent pup who dared to talk back to him before. Turning to his subordinate, Section Chief O, the director prepares to issue a ruthless command. Director Baek's expression darkens, and everyone feels genuine fear as he orders his men to crush the boy. The scene shifts to a bureau conference room, where the fallout is already being analyzed. A massive screen replays the exact YouTube broadcast from yesterday, showing the disastrous confrontation. The presenter highlights the overwhelming media storm, showing how news outlets have been tearing through Soo-yul's reputation all day. Desperate, team leader begs the committee to reconsider, arguing that punishing Soo-yul so severely is completely excessive. He furiously points out that the large guilds are the ones truly at fault, and that the viral videos are clearly manipulated to hide the truth. But the man in the gray suit coldly dismisses the defense, stating that manipulation doesn't matter when the entire public is already talking about it. This is Hoon Ji-hyuk, head of the surveillance division, and he ruthlessly declares that Soo-yul must face the consequences. Lee Han refuses to back down, firing back that the Overcross Guild should be the ones facing punishment for trying to crush our boy. The accusation hits a nerve and Hoon Ji-hyuk violently slams his fist onto the table. Trembling with fury, Hoon Ji-hyuk demands to know if Lee Han has completely lost his mind. Before the argument can escalate, a blonde man in a suit steps in and orders them both to stand down. The newcomer shifts the focus entirely, calmly verifying that our protagonist currently holds a flawless 100% rescue rate. He stares out the window and explains that Soo-yul is far too valuable of an asset to throw away, and if the Bureau wants to maintain its authority over the massive guilds, they need him. The man turns back to the room, locking eyes with Lee Han to ask if the rescue team has an alternative plan ready. He takes a slow sip from his cup, noting that since the guilds have made such an aggressive move, the Bureau might not be able to retaliate with full force just yet. The man is finally revealed as Pak Kwong-soo, director of the Management Bureau, and he makes a vow right then and there. They will respond to this threat accordingly.